While most of the videos on Aduro so far have focused mostly on the future and future promises, today I'm going to look at undeniable facts about Aduro Clean Technologies that are true right now. So you don't have to rely on anything that's going to happen in the future. These facts are true right now. So partnerships with multi-billion-dollar companies, this is a fact. Aduro has around 10 engagements, depends on how you count them exactly. 5 are in oil and petrochem, 3 are in plastics retail, and 2 are in waste management. And 6 of those, as far as I know, are multi-billion-dollar companies. And of the known ones that were named, there are Total Energies and GF Building Flow Solution Americas, which is a subsidiary of Georg Fischer AG. And these are the only multi-billion-dollar companies mentioned so far. And Aduro has a memorandum of understanding with Clean Farms, which is not really a company, but it's private, or a private consortium of firms, or yeah. So another thing that's a fact is that Aduro has a collaboration with Total Energies, and this has been a timeline so far. So in October 23, Aduro welcomed a new partner in the customer engagement program. At that point, it was private who that participant was, but we now know it was Total Energies. In November, they expanded the technology evaluation scope, and in July 24, it finally became public who the company is, and it turned out to be Total Energy. So this is a fact that Total Energy, one of the largest oil and petrochemical company in the world, is actively collaborating with Aduro. And how far are they along in that collaboration? Well, Aduro lists these 3 steps that a partner can go through. That's technology evaluation, collaboration, and commercialization. And Total Energies right now is in step 2. And at some point I will hopefully move to step 3. But again, this would be a future hope and a plan. As of right now, they're already at stage 2. So that's a fact, and that's amazing. And not a lot of companies can claim such a, major sizable partner as Total Energies. Another thing that's a fact, that Total's head of R&D incubation is looking forward to industrialization with Aduro. And again, this is a fact. This is not a conjecture. This is Frederick, who on LinkedIn, under a post where Aduro's management was visiting Total, he said, "We are very pleased to have opened this new collaborative path with Aduro. We expect to demonstrate together that we can industrialize their technology." Industrialize, right? That's crazy that he actually said that, which gives us a lot of clues of what might happen in the future. But again, that he said that, that's a fact. That's not conjecture. He said that on a public platform, right? And he is the head of R&D incubation portfolio, and he focuses on, finding breakthrough technologies, low carbon, sustainable energy, de-risking. That's exactly what Aduro is in. So it's not just some random guy in Total. He's actually like the main guy who focuses on companies like Aduro. So it's, it's a very interesting fact that might give you hints of what might happen in the future. But again, that he made those comments is a fact. Next one is that Aduro's recycling technology is better than Pure Cycles. Now, I'm not here to bash on other companies or anything like that, but you will see why I made this point later on. And also, I thought about doing a separate video on Pure Cycle, but kind of turned out to be a little bit too boring, so I'm not going to do that. But I'm just quickly comparing the 2 technologies. Again, I don't want to bash the other company, but it's just interesting to know, and you will see why this makes sense a little bit later on. So for Pure Cycle, they can only process a clean polypropylene stream, while Aduro can process and recycle a dirty and mixed PE, PP, and PS, which is polyethylene, polypropylene, polystyrene. And Aduro can pretty much take any plastic type in, but only those 3 as of right now can be turned into usable output. So as an output, Pure Cycle produces only polypropylene pellets, while Aduro's output can be tuned to produce a large variety of hydrocarbons. It can either be a mix of different chain lengths, or they can fine tune it to produce mostly just one chain length that going to be the best product, whether it's on price or what the customer wants, or it's very flexible. So, and PureCycle is also very sensitive to a variance in input stream. So, if the input stream is not consistent, sometimes has a little bit more contamination, sometimes less, that's going to screw with the system, while Aduro can handle any plastic type and contamination. And again, when I say it can handle any plastic type, that doesn't mean that any plastic type is going to be turned into a usable output. But for example, PVC gets into the system, it doesn't clog up the system, it just pretty much gets passed through or turned into a neutral product that's not really usable, but it's also not damaging to anything. PureCycle licenses that technology, while Aduro owns their own patented technology outright. It's their own technology. PureCycle also, as far as I know, works only economically on a quite large scale, while Aduro is modular and scalable. One of the main reasons is that, I'm gonna go into that in later slides, but one of the main reasons that Aduro's output is hydrogenated. So that means they don't need molecular hydrogen, they don't need a hydrogen plant, they don't need post-processing, a huge post-processing facility, which is one of the main reasons. I don't know if it's the main reason, but it's a major reason why it's modular, right? You don't need this plant that's built to spec to a specific throughput. You can just build the reactors, yeah. So a little bit of how PureCycle's recycling works. So they melt the polypropylene feedstock, they dissolve it in solvent, they extract the contaminants, which is the mostly color and odor, then they filter it, and then they turn it into polypropylene pellets. And how it works for Aduro, they shred the mixed feedstock, they mix it with water, the catalyst, and a hydrogen reducing agent, which might be just paper, for example. Then they do the hydrochemilytic deconstruction, and then what they get out of it, then they separate the fractions and they recover their output. So, and for example, these last two steps can be done by a chemical partner, like a Total can just take this output at this step here and do the last two steps themselves. So it's very flexible. Why I mentioned the comparison to PureCycle is that Aduro currently is trading around 15% of the enterprise value of PureCycle. So here you see, as of right now, it might be different in the future. If you're watching this video, like a year from release, these numbers are going to be very different. But as of right now, Aduro is trading about 15% of PureCycle. And from the previous slides, you saw that, it seems like, and it's also, it's just objectively, in my personal opinion, Aduro is just a better technology, but it's trading at 15% of the enterprise value of PureCycle. So, that's just a fact. That's nothing to say about the future, whether PureCycle will come down, Aduro will go up, or what will happen, but it's just an interesting fact to mention. So Aduro can recycle and upcycle not only plastics, but also heavy crude oil, renewable oils, and cross-linked polymers. And this is all things that were pretty much proven already. This is not hope. To be precise, I didn't find anything where they have proven it for renewable oils, but for plastic, heavy crude oil, and cross-linked polymers, it's already been proven on an R2 flow-through stage. So it's not just a batch system, so it's on a flow-through basis. This has been proven already. And they also have potential for rubber recycling, although as far as I know, this is still in very early stages, but there are signs that this will actually work. But, for these purposes, it's not proven yet. They've shown here that they can break down cross-linked polymers at an around 84% efficiency. And Aduro is, again, considering recycling rubber, so tire rubbers, which would be amazing. But again, they are still only considering this. And as far as I know, they haven't done any experiments on especially that. And you can read all of this if you want to. These are all from Aduro press releases. And that they're testing synthetic turf waste and also recycling crump rubber. And crump rubber is just recycled rubber that's produced from normal like car tires. Where you can turn just the tires into a crump rubber, and Aduro is looking into recycling that, which kind of means they can recycle actual car tires, which is, and again, another vertical. But to be honest, this is not proven yet, but it's a nice potential. So Aduro Clean Technologies chemistry has been validated, by a third party. So it's not just their partners, but there has been an independent audit by Dr. Paul Charpentier. And, you know, I'm going to show you more about it, but it's been proven that the bitumen portion or the heavy oil upgrading is actually working. And this guy is a professor at Toronto's Western University, so it's not just some guy. He has, has been a well-respected professor for 25 years with a PhD in chemical engineering, so this guy knows really what he's talking about, and he's been very positive about the Aduro technology. So again, another sign and fact that the technology is not just hype or some, something theoretical. It actually works, right? And I haven't been able to find any indications or hint from anyone that the technology doesn't work, and if you find anything like that, let me know. But as far as I know, everyone who tested it was really impressed by it. And, it's just that the technology is still quite early on from a development perspective. And as far as I could find, no company has ever left a customer engagement program. That's a fact. And maybe they didn't announce it, but left it. But as far as I know, everyone was so far really happy with the results, which again is a fact and speaks for the company and the technology. And the Shell Game Changer program is also close to completion, which is also a fact that Aduro has been in the Game Changer program for quite a while now. They entered in November 2022, and they're still in there. And in September 23, they passed the midpoint of the project. And as of the latest financial release, Aduro tells us that they're currently underway to determine project conclusion, followed by an expected formal graduation from the project. So from the program, this might happen this year, maybe early next year, we don't know. But, it seems like maybe they're waiting for the NGP to finish. But, it's in fact that Shell is also a major petrochemical and oil company, and they've already been engaged with Aduro now for 3 years, right? That's just a fact. So the NGP or pilot plant is currently under construction, and there is a letter of intent for the demo plant location, and this is a fact. Again, while you might say, well, they're just promising that the pilot plant is going to work and the demo plant is going to be great, but it's a fact that it's currently under construction. There are videos, there are other evidence. So this is what Aduro themselves are laying out what their current plan is. Again, in this video, we're going to focus more on the facts as they are right now. And currently, we are in this phase here with the NGP. We are currently in commissioning, which is going to probably going to be finished Q1 2026. And the design is also in this last final steps where they're already looking at locations where to put the plant. So, that's a fact. We're already close to getting the NGP completed. And, unless something goes catastrophically wrong, which might always happen, but right now it looks pretty good. So this is you can read those if you want. It's just an overview of the progress of the pilot plant. And here we see the press release where they announced that they have an LOI for the purchase of existing industrial site for $2 million. And the CEO told us that the demo this is for the demo plant, that the demo plant is going to cost approximately $10 to $20 million. So if they can buy the plant for like 2 million euros, then put another 10-15 in, that sounds pretty good. So you see, the company is not overspending. I mean, 2 million for an already existing industrial site with equipment that they might reuse, or some of it, that seems pretty good. That's just the fact that they have already a non-binding letter of intent. It might not amount to anything, but that's a fact, right? Another fact is that DeBorrow Capital has a $48 per share price target, and it originally had a $50 price target. Now they updated it to $48. I don't think it's really meaningful. The change of $2, I don't think it's really meaningful, but it's a fact, and that's great to see that a big company investment house like this is putting a 48 price target, which is multiples of the current stock price. So, I mean, that's just great to see some validation. It's also another fact that insiders own over 36% of the company and have never sold any shares, as far as I could see from the time they've gone public. You see here most of the insider ownership is by the CEO, which, he makes the most important decisions. So that's great, I think. The co-founder also has about 4% of the shares, and the CFO, which is also great to see because he sees all the finances, all the stuff. I mean, right now there's not much to see with Aduro. They have pretty much no revenues, but the CFO owning around 1% and never selling anything it's a great sign and is a fact. Other point, I want to dive deeper into Eric Appelman because I think he's one of the most significant people, just because he decided to leave such a cushy position at other companies. So you see like a rough outline of his career. Recently he was at Brightlands Camelot campus, where he saw hundreds of different, startups, chemical technologies, whatever, and then came Aduro, and he was so impressed by it that he left his comfortable full-time position to join a pretty much unproven startup instead of retiring or going or staying at Brightlands or joining another like major company. He has like over 30 years of experience in the chemical industry, right? Like could have easily joined any company he wanted, or retire. He is like, not young, but no, he decided to join Aduro, right? That's amazing. And on LinkedIn, how he talks about Aduro Clean Technologies is that Aduro is developing a unique and very attractive technology, these are his words, to chemically recycle plastic waste through a relatively mild and simple process with a high tolerance for feedstock variation and impurities. Again, like his words, he has over 30 years experience in the chemical industry, and he made the decision to join the company. He didn't have to, right? Also here, this is from another thing I found, where he was immediately captivated by its unique technology, which offers big advantages versus more traditional recycling technologies. I mean, the largest competitors are mechanical recycling, which is the most efficient one, but can only really recycle PET. And the other technology is pyrolysis, which has a lot of other disadvantages. Yeah. So management has never missed a promised milestone. So this has been very, very impressive for me personally compared to other companies where there are constant delays. With Aduro, they say they're going to finish, let's say, by the end of the year, and they finish by the end of the year. They say we're going to file more patents and find more partners, and they do that. And this is very rare from a management company. So I've been very impressed personally, and this is also a fact. And it's also a fact that Aduro has demonstrated with facts, this is not conjecture, that they can recycle a pure polypropylene stream with 95% conversion efficiency, which is absolutely amazing. And here you can see like a rough breakdown. Obviously it's going to be different every time, but of the losses, they only have around 5% losses. And for example, this methane they can reuse, because methane is pretty much natural gas, which you can run a natural gas turbine and generate electricity, which again lowers like the whole greenhouse emissions and makes the company look greener and have even lower OPEX because they can reuse the methane, which is amazing. Also very low charring. The reactor is not going to clog up. Yeah, it's great. And again, these percentages they can tune however they want to, pretty much. Yeah. Another big fact is that Aduro's output stream is saturated and does not need post-treatment, as you saw in the comparison with PureCycle, for example. And when you look at pyrolysis technologies, which is like one of the, let's say, the main competitor or the main technologies currently used to chemically recycle plastic, their output needs post-treatment and needs a molecular hydrogen source, which is, you need a hydrogen plant, and then you need a plant that applies this hydrogen to the output stream pretty much, and it's very expensive to build and run, and decreases the modularity like I mentioned before. I mean, that's a really big deal. And pyrolysis output produces like a mix of single, double and triple bonded carbons in the hydrocarbon chains, and which means they are more chemically reactive and they can undergo unwanted side operations or side chains, right? Like polymerization, you don't really want that in your output, but sometimes happens with pyrolysis. In comparison, Aduro's output is ready to go with minimal after treatment because it has single carbon bonds only, which means you don't need hydrogen to hydrogenate it because it's already pretty much finished. which means it's also more stable. And Aduro's process does it in situ with things like glycerol or paper, which is pretty much during the recycling, the hydrogen is already applied and the output only has single bonds instead of this mix of different bond types. Again, I'm not a chemist. If I said something wrong, let me know in the comments, but I'm trying my best. And from what I gather, I think the main point here is you don't need hydrogen, which means you don't need post-treatment really. The product is way more stable, is cleaner, and has higher value and can be tuned so you can produce what you like. So yeah, this is like the main thing that really cuts down on OPEX and CAPEX and increases modularity. Yeah. Another fact is that management has always communicated clearly, regularly, and has never lied. And especially in the recent months, their communication has been very, very regular. So even like on small things that they did, they report on it, or even if they haven't released anything interesting for a while, they do like regular updates. Hey, we are currently working on the NGP, just letting you know what we're doing right now, how we're moving along. So that's great. You're never like with many microcaps, you often have like, once a quarter you get a quarterly release, you read it, you listen to the earnings call, and then it's pretty much it. You just wait for 3 months again. Like it's investors need a little bit of hand holding, and it really helps the stock price as well when you see constant progress. So yeah, company dilutes very diligently and only when needed. So this is like really amazing. I create a little chart here where you see they only raise like majorly only 6 times. And if you see here the discount to a 1 month moving average of the stock price, it's all been relatively like pretty much close to the moving average. So, they haven't been like over diluting by offering it at like 20% below the stock price or something like that. And it's also important to note that they only offer half a warrant per share, while like most microcaps offer like a full warrant, for example. Which just shows you that investors are happy to just buy it at market value and just get a half a share for their efforts, which is great. And again, they don't dilute when they don't need to, and they wait until the stock price has been rising a little bit, and then they dilute a little bit when they need it. It's just great to see, I guess. And the latest raise was around $9 million, and this was to pretty much finalize the NGP and have a little bit of transition money, and they probably will have to raise at least one more time. I mean, they probably will raise more than once, but the next raise will be for the demo plant. As I mentioned, demo plant is around 10 to 20 million bucks. So they might raise like 20 million. But with a market cap of like 400 million, like a 20 million dilution, that's really not a big deal. That's great to see. Also, as we saw previously, Aduro has 0 debt, which is amazing, right? Like, even if things don't really work out, they don't have debt that can crush them. The bank can't take the assets, or the bondholders, because there aren't any, which, that's just great. And this is the last slide where, 14 years ago, the company was founded, and the founders never gave up on their vision. And they still keep going. So that's like a little bit of a chart where we're at. And when we're talking about facts, we're focusing on these 2 steps here. So the research, which started in 2011, that just like 14 years ago, like I mentioned. It's crazy that they've been at it so long, slowly but surely. They've been researching more technologies, getting more patents, figuring things out. It's just great. And around 2022, which is around the point where they went public, they that's the reason why they went public, because they needed money. They started on a lab scale with R1, R2, and they've shown that the technology actually works on a continuous flow basis. So it's not just it's not lab experiment anymore, but technically it's still lab scale. Where we get to pilot scale is approximately in Q1 2026, where they're gonna build the NGP. And the important part about the NGP is that there are commercially standardized equipment that they're gonna build from, which means to go to the demo scale, which is in Q1 or Q2 2027. Again, this is projected, can change. But yeah, the nice thing about using commercially standard equipment, all the scaling ratios are already known. Like, it's been used in industry for decades, so they know exactly, okay, we make the demo plant, you know, I don't know, 100 times larger, so this means this is gonna scale like that, and you know, these numbers are all known, so this is gonna be a very low risk scale up, because they pretty much, in both of those, they use the same equipment, maybe some slightly larger equipment in a demo scale, maybe more equipment side by side, but again, if the pilot works, the demo scale is probably also going to work very, very similarly. And after 2028 or 2028 and after, we're going to be full commercial scale, which might be our own reactors or licensing the technology to other players, like for example Total, which talked about industrialization. Again, this is all speculation right now. All these you know, green and orange is still speculation, but you know, I think it's very well-founded speculation, and I think really the pilot scale and the pilot plant is really the critical piece. I think it's just so important. I might do a separate video on it, because this is just it's just the most important part in this whole thing. Because if the pilot scale works, because they are using standard equipment, then they can just scale it up to demo scale and commercial. Like, yeah, the real danger is like this step not working. If this step works, it's pretty much done. But again, I'm probably going to do a separate video on that in the future, just because it's just so important. Yeah, so it was a little bit long-winded, but I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys in the next video.